Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you very much for joining us this evening for our virtual Boston Thurmond community meeting. Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Denise Adams is here with us, along with Representative Derwin Montgomery, along with a panel of staff members and members from our Winston-Salem Forsyth County School System. Ed McMahon will be narrating our meeting this evening and ask that you utilize the hand sign at the bottom of your panel if you should have a question, and it will be asked throughout the program. If you have additional questions, Ed McMahon will be able to provide you with our house rules for the evening. Again, thank you very much and welcome.
McNeil.
What did I?
McMahon. Like the game show host.
Gina, you're going way back.
Quite honestly, I feel like I'm the leader of game show host right now, Mayor. So my apologies, please. Okay.
So
you can go now, Mayor.
Who's up first?
All right.
Oh, I'm supposed to say something. Oh, okay. I'm so busy in everybody else's business. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our first virtual City Boston Thurmond community meeting. Again, I know this is quite unusual and it's unconventional, but this is the world we operate in now. And as we've seen with the virtual meetings and technology, because so many people are using it and online, there can be issues. But I want to thank marketing and communications and Ed McNeil and his staff and Zena and others that have made this meeting possible. And thank you all for coming. I'm not going to belabor it. I'm going to go ahead and let Ms. Jones have her first take at being the first panelist presenter.
All right. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Perfect. So I want to say first, thank you for the opportunity to be with you guys and to be first on the list. So I come to you from Novant Health. My name is Portia Jones, and I serve in the 27105, 27101, 27106 zip codes. In the last couple months, we've had the opportunity to serve the great city of Winston-Salem and provide COVID screening. One of the testing sites that we've been able to work at is Highland Avenue in 27105, as well as Today's Woman, which lands us in the Boston Thurmond area. I wanted to give some insight on some of the great things that we've done thus far. And if there's any questions, I know for the sake of time, I'd like to leave my email address and you guys can reach out to me at any time possible. And not sure if you want to include the PowerPoint that I sent to you.
How many slides is it, Portia? To your
One slide.
All right, Ed. Ed, can you put up Portia's slide? Is that possible?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect.
Did you get it? There it is.
You might have to share your screen. I don't see it.
I don't know.
You don't know how to do it?
No, I do. It's just not doing it.
Well, Ed, that's totally fine. If it's not sharing, then I can just talk through it, and I can send this PowerPoint via email to you all.
Ed,
There it is.
There it is. Perfect. So, Ed, if you, I guess I can. There you go, Ed. So here's just a brief rundown of what we've been able to do. So we have sites in downtown Winston-Salem area over the past couple weeks, and we believe it's because school has started, amongst other things, but we have seen our trend on the downward slope as far as the volume that we are seeing at our screening sites. So as you can see, we have a site at Walltown, which started May 2020 and is still going presently. So as you can see, the volumes from August range from 61 to 20 per day. So we are on the downward slope from that standpoint, as well as Kimberly Park, which that started in June 2020 to present. The volumes in August range from 36 to 14 a day, and obviously we are on a downward slope there as well. And then Highland Avenue, which is in 27105, started June 2020, and here present, and in the August range from 36 to 15 a day. And again, all three sites are on the downward slope. One of the good things that we're looking at from a Novant Health standpoint is that we are looking at a long-term plan. And we are looking to create one site that will be viable for all persons in our community. And so those plans are still in the making. So I don't have any updates as of right now. I just wanted to give a quick rundown of what we've done so far. So thankful for all the leaders who have worked with us to make these sites possible. We haven't quite seen the numbers that we would have liked, and we've seen a lot of patients who have come from outside of the zip codes to visit some of these sites. But all in all, I think we've done an excellent job of being able to serve and create some type of access points. And so if there are any questions that you may have, feel free to ask me now. If not, I'll leave my email address and you guys can contact me as needed.
Portia,
Yes, ma'am.
do you feel like, because people have been dealing with COVID since March, that people know that if you test and you test positive, you got to go quarantine? Do you think
Correct.
that might be one of the issues we have now is people, they have some, outside engagement. They don't want to give that up. So from my perspective, I've said now, people are running to get tested, even if they got it and know they got it. They don't want to be in lockdown for 2 weeks.
Right. Yeah, and that's a good point. I was at the screening site earlier today, and someone came by and they decided not to get the screening done because they would have to be out of work for the amount of time they would have to wait to get the actual yes or no if they tested positive or not. So those are some of the barriers that we're obviously running into. That's some things that we've been talking about and how to kind of face those barriers. But as of right now, this is where we stand. But we also do want to have a long-term plan for the city of Winston-Salem, which includes this Boston Thurmond area as well.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Representative Montgomery.
Good evening, folks. Hope everybody is doing well. Thank you to Mayor Pro Tem Adams for the opportunity to share with you all in the Boston Thurmond community and to all of the city staff and other partners who are on the call today. I want to run down a few things for you. There is a lot happening in the city as well as across the state. And we've actually had just today some great news and information that has come out of the state that I think is important to us as we're moving forward. First and foremost, we go back into session September the 1st. Unfortunately, I'm going to be in the General Assembly on my birthday. Hopefully that means that for my birthday, we can pass a budget, because right now we do not have a budget moving forward. The budget process was delayed due to COVID-19 and the delay in taxes being the deadline for taxes. So because the tax deadline was pushed back, actually approving a budget for this year, that process got pushed back as well. So we'll be going back in September 1st to attempt to resolve budgetary issues. As you are well aware of, in the state of North Carolina right now, we're facing budget deficits and gaps. And so some of the plans that we had at the beginning of this year, we're not going to be able to do, as you may say, some of the shiny things that we would have wanted to do in the state of North Carolina, we may not be able to do. So it's really about shoring up the house. How do we make sure that the basic things are moving forward, such as Department of Transportation, making sure that when you get on our interstates and our roads, that you're able to travel properly, ensuring that state employees across the board, from our state troopers to our teachers, are ensure that they are compensated and well taken care of during this time frame. And as well, the biggest one when it comes to education, ensuring that our schools have the appropriate resources as they're navigating COVID-19. So what we'll likely see as we go back into this budget conversation are appropriations directed in those three categories specifically. There's going to be some proposals coming forward for us to look at our infrastructure across the state. In Winston-Salem, we have lots of state-supported institutions, and it be incumbent upon us to be able to tap into those resources. But one of the biggest places that I think we may be able to tap into resources is that the state has about $1.5 billion of unappropriated COVID, the CARES Act resources that has to be appropriated and has to be spent, it has to be spent by the end of this year. And so right now, what is being looked at are parts within state government that these resources can be applied, that they will be expended by the end of the year. One of the places that's going to be important for the city of Winston-Salem is that there is a proposal moving that would appropriate about $200 million more to cities and towns across the state of North Carolina, and $200 million to counties across the state of North Carolina, and again requiring that at least 25% of those funds go to the municipalities within those cities. What that would mean for Winston-Salem is the potential to have an additional appropriation of CARES Act resources to help support the day-to-day operations and business of the city, and potentially to allow the city to do more to serve in this time frame. One thing that I want you to pay attention to, and that's big for all the folks in our city, and we're going to be navigating getting nonprofits connected to, is that today the governor announced a $175 million fund to support eviction prevention and utility payments. And so out of that, there'll be resources that are now going to be flowing down across the entire state to support the prevention of evictions, as well as dealing with helping folks catch up on utility bills. You know, we just saw about $3.5 million worth of water bills that folks are behind here in Forsyth County. This is not the end-all be-all to solve that problem, but it does put resources in place to help folks in our community to tap into those resources. We do not know yet, so don't start calling. We don't yet know which agencies are going to have those resources to start divvying them out. But as soon as we understand and know which agencies are going to be receiving those funds, look forward to work with you, Mayor Pro Tem, and maybe Ed, to help push that information out to the broader community so folks will know where they can go to tap into those resources. Because what we don't want is we don't want to see, as we have not yet had what we don't want to see is large numbers of individuals losing their housing due to evictions, as well as what the end result will be on folks who get too far behind on utility payments. So that's a 1,000-foot picture of what's going on at the state level. And like I said, I wish I had a number and an organization to give to everybody today on where they could go to tap into those resources. But there's a commitment from the governor's office and the departments that are managing these funds that within swift order, we'll know exactly where folks on the ground can tap into these resources so that they can start catching up on some of the back rent and utilities.
Thank you. Ed, could you, because you can see everybody, would you go ahead and ask staff online and all of the panelists and visitors, everybody, at least say what your name is and what you do, and even the attendees, the residents of Boston Thurmond.
Yes, ma'am. They can hear us. And so I will ask all of you, if you're a participant or if you're an attendee, when it comes your time to talk, if you'll just help us out by saying your name and the area you're in. Did I understand you correctly, Mayor Pro Tem, or did you want to do an introduction around for everyone?
I want everyone, because that's, you know, because this is such a smaller crowd than we normally have. We should be able to know everybody that took the time to be on this meeting.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. So let's start there with Deidre Pender. Deidre, if you would go ahead, and you're already unmuted. If you would introduce yourself, please.
Yes, my name is Deidre Pender, and I am the Senior Project Supervisor of the Community Development Lending Division.
Okay. And we just heard from State Representative Durham Montgomery, but take the moment, sir, if you would.
I'm Durham Montgomery, State Representative, 72nd House District.
Okay. And of course, everybody knows our Mayor Pro Tem, and then her Community Assistant Liaison is Zena Johnson. Zena?
Representing Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem D.D. Adams.
And Assistant City Manager Mr. Rao is on the call.
Yes, my name is Ben Rao. I'm one of the Assistant City Managers for Winston-Salem.
The next person we'll hear from presenting today is going to be Captain Noonan. Captain Noonan, if you would introduce yourself, please.
Good evening, everyone. Captain Rick Noonan. I'm the captain over District 1, which includes the Boston-Thurmond area.
Okay. I see Effie McMillan.
Hi, I'm Effie McMillan, Executive Director of Equity, Access, and Acceleration for the Winston-Salem Forsyth County School District.
Thank you, ma'am. We heard from Portia Jones already, but
Hi, my name is Portia Jones from Novant Health with the beautiful community engagement team.
all right. And Regina is on the call.
Hi, I'm Regina Hall. I serve as the Executive Director of Boston-Thurmond Community Network.
And Assistant City Manager Tasha Logan Ford.
Good evening, everyone. Tasha Logan Ford, Assistant City Manager, and I'm happy to be back and talk with some of the Boston-Thurmond residents.
And from Recreation and Parks, we have Director William Royston.
Good evening, everyone. This is William Royston, the Director for the Recreation and Parks Department for the City of Winston-Salem.
Okay, Bruce Bailiff is on the call. Bruce is our next introduction. One moment, Bruce. There you are, sir.
Good evening. My name is Bruce Bailiff. I'm with Community Development. I'm the Senior Project Supervisor over Code Enforcement.
Okay. And Director of Community Development is next. That's Marla Newman.
I would like to see. Good evening, all. Again, Marla Newman, Community Development Director for the City of Winston-Salem. Good to be with you.
And we have our Fire Chief on, Mr. Trey Mayo. One moment, Chief. There you are.
Try it again. Good evening. Good to see everybody. I'm Trey Mayo. I'm the Fire Chief for the city.
And from the Police Department, Wilson Weaver.
Good evening, everyone. Assistant Chief W.S. Weaver II. I'm the Assistant Chief over the Patrol and Special Operations Divisions.
Okay. Thank you, sir. And we're going to switch over and hear from our attendees. And so Ashley Miller, Ashley, you are unmuted. If you would introduce yourself, please tell us who you are and your area of the city.
My name is Ashley Miller. I reside off of Haywood Street, and that's about it.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Carol Brooks is on the call, and
hello, I am Carol Brooks. I am the liaison for Representative Derwin L. Montgomery of the 72nd District. We reside here, both here and in Raleigh, representing the Forsyth County from a state level.
okay. And I see David West.
David West. I'm a resident of Boston-Thurmond community. Also, I am the chairperson for the Boston-Thurmond Community Engagement Roundtable Safety and Beautification Team.
Okay. Deborah Harris.
Yes, hi, I am Deborah Harris. I am the Chief Program Officer for Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools. I couldn't get in on a participant. I can only get in on attendees.
Okay, great. Thank you for being with us. Ms. Fitzhugh.
Yes, good evening. I'm Diane Fitzhugh, and I'm a member of the Boston-Thurmond Community Engagement Roundtable, and I am the team leader for the Education Planning Team.
Okay. Alyssa? I may be mispronouncing that name. My apologies, but Alyssa Barella.
Hi, Elise Barella. You were close. I'm a resident of West Salem, but I'm a stakeholder with the beautification and safety team that Mr. West mentioned, and I'm also on the pedestrian plan steering committee.
Okay, great. Jean Perry.
Good afternoon or good evening, everyone. I am Jean Perry. I am a resident of Cherry Hill, neighbor to Ms. Fitzhugh, just a very concerned citizen, just recently displaced due to fire, but now back into the same community, but a different building. Glad to be here.
Very good. Thank you for joining us today. We have Leslie Winbush. Leslie? You can go ahead now.
Hear me?
We can now.
Okay. Good to be with you all this evening. I'm Leslie Winbush from Winston-Salem State University.
All right. Patricia Caldwell.
Good evening. I'm Patricia Caldwell with the Boston Thurmond Community Engagement Roundtable Revitalization Team and also the president of the Boston Thurmond Neighborhood Association and a resident. Thank you.
Great. We have Paula Wilkins. Paula?
Paula Wilkins is unable to, she has very limited volume and limited access to speaking, so you could try one more time, but she was having technical difficulties.
Okay.
And Ed, she did put it in the chat. She is Dr. Wilkins, principal of Cook Literacy Model School in Boston Thurmond.
Thank you. I appreciate that. My apologies. Maybe we can hear from her a little bit later on. I see Ramona Brooks. Ramona?
Ramona Brooks, member of Boston Thurmond Community Engagement Roundtable and member of the petition team.
Thank you, ma'am. And Richie Brooks. That's a name we're familiar with a little bit, isn't it?
Good evening, everyone.
It sounds like there's two devices in the same room there.
Yeah, we're moving one.
Yeah. So, Shy, thank you, Richie.
Okay.
Shy.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Richie Brooks, and I'm a board member of the community of the Boston Thurmond Community Network, and also the Boston Thurmond Community Roundtable as a stakeholder.
Thank you, Richie. Okay. Shy?
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to go back into open session?
That's Shay Woodbury.
There's no question or discussion, Dr. Harrison, can you take roll,
She's in the school system meeting right now.
Yes, trying to multitask.
Okay, let's, we're going to go back to Ms. Sharon Richmond from our Community Development Department. Sharon?
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, this is Sharon Richmond. I'm the Deputy Director of Community Development.
Okay. And then Tiffany White joins us also from the Planning Department. Tiffany?
Hi, I'm Tiffany White. I'm a project planner with Winston-Salem Forsyth County Planning and Development Services, and I'm also the staff coordinator for the Forsyth County Complete Count Committee for the 2020 census.
Great. And then we have to go back to Housing and Neighborhood Development. Melon Parker is also with us on the call today.
Good afternoon. This is Melon Parker. I am the Planning Senior Project Supervisor for the Community Development Department.
Okay. All right, Mayor Pro Tem, that's all of the people that are on our call today. If you're good with it, we can go back now to our Chrome update with Captain Noonan. Okay. Captain Noonan?
Yes,
you have the floor, sir. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Ed, can you hear me? Ed, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Well, good evening, everyone. It's been a while since we've all been together. Where do we begin? Thank you for having me tonight, Mayor Pro Tem Adams, Representative Montgomery, and I believe Chief Weaver may be on the call too. Just heads up. So good evening, everyone. I'm going to give you a kind of a rundown what we've been doing in District 1 for the last few months. District 1 is also responsible for the downtown area. And so a lot of my people, a lot of my officers have been working the downtown events over the past few months when it comes to rallies, marches, protests, that type of stuff. That has been manpower exhaustive. It has gone really well for the most part. And in fact, recently, it hasn't been a drain on manpower at all. Within the last 2 or 3 weeks, we started making a few custodial arrests and writing citations for the blocking of the streets, that type of stuff. And since then, it's gone really well. So I'm able to move my manpower back from downtown back into the beats where they need to be. Our special operations division has been a huge help when it comes to the downtown events, and they've been able to supplement us. So that's been great. Obviously, what we've been dealing with citywide for the past few months has been the amount of shootings that we have had involving not only adults, but juveniles. That has been our main focus as a department, our main focus as District 1 officers to reduce that. But when we talk about the crime stats, I'm going to go over a few from basically comparing 2020 to 2019, okay? And it's basically first from, say, January 1st all the way up through the end of July. Our disturbance calls are up a great deal. We have over 100 more disturbance calls this year than we did for the same time frame last year. Our assaults are actually one less, so there's not an uptake in that at all. Our trespassing calls have increased a great deal. We had 63 last year during this time frame. We've had 87 this year. Our illegal weapons calls have gone up. We had 56 during the last time frame. We're now up to 68 this year. So that's an increase. Our vandalisms are up slightly. Our larcenies are up slightly. One thing that has gone down a great deal is our house breakings. The house breakings in the Boston-Thurmond area is basically almost half. We had 60 of them last year during this time frame. We've only had 38 during this time frame for this year. So less house breakings, but we have had more auto breakings, a significant increase there. So up with the disturbances, trespassing, weapons, larcenies, and auto B&Es, down with the HB&Ls. And I think there's a lot of explanations for that. A lot of those type of crimes that are up, I think can be contributed to juvenile activity. And unfortunately, obviously, the juveniles are out of school, and I think they may be bored. Whatever reason, that probably has contributed to that. The reason that the house break-ins are down, honestly, is because of COVID-19. Everybody's home. And so no one's going to break into a house when they know people are home. Most of our house break-ins occur during the day, so that's why we've seen a decrease in the house break-ins. One thing that is up again is our aggravated assaults, and that's our gun violence, the crime that we've seen. Within the past few weeks, our department, Chief Thompson, Chief Weaver, has implemented what we're calling a VCAT team. It's a team that basically investigates violent crimes and apprehends the offender, and they're solely focused on gun crime. Since we implemented 5 weeks ago, we've seen a drastic decrease in the amount of shootings, especially in the Kimberly Park area. Now, when we go east of 52 or south of I-40, South Winston and East Winston, they haven't seen quite the decrease that we've seen here in the Boston-Thurmond area, but at least the Boston-Thurmond area, we've seen a better numbers for the gun crime. One of the biggest issues that's come up the last couple of weeks, and I know it may seem minor to what I'm talking about, but the speeding issue in the Boston-Thurmond area has actually become a pretty considerable problem. Getting phone calls from residents on 25th Street, west and east. But the biggest problems are occurring between Cherry and Pittsburgh Avenue. So we've devoted some time and effort into the speeding in that area. And the other one that I believe will pop up is Thurmond Street. We're having some trouble with speeding on Thurmond Street, which has contributed to some accidents on Thurmond Street. Thurmond near Grant, Thurmond, near 20th Street. That's where we're seeing an increase in the traffic accidents. So that's my synopsis. I'm obviously willing and able to try to answer any questions that you guys may have, but that's where we're at.
Good afternoon.
Yes, ma'am.
How many homicides has District 1 had?
How many homicides does District 1 have?
Yes.
I don't have that with me right now. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I know we had one on Park Circle, which is down near the baseball park. That was a drug-related situation, a robbery, drug type theft. Chief Weaver, can you think of any other ones that we've had?
No, I only know the overall number, and I believe the overall number is right at 20 as it stands right now. But I would like to state that gun crime is the greatest crime challenge to the Winston-Salem Police Department, but remind everyone that it's not just in Winston-Salem. For whatever reason, American society has decided that the best way to resolve conflicts with each other is to go to firearms. So all major North Carolina cities are seeing an increase in gun violence. All over the southeastern United States, as well as across the country, is having this issue with gun violence that's occurring. So for the Winston-Salem Police Department, besides putting together a specialized team to have a quick response and flooding of an area in an effort to apprehend the shooters that are involved in these, not only have we done that, but we've partnered with Forsyth County Sheriff's Department, who you will probably see more of inside the city limits, trying to assist us with getting a handle on the gun crime, as well as our federal partners, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, who's also assisting us in trying to get a hold of the gun crime that's not only going on here, but across the nation. So we can answer any other questions that you may have regarding that.
Okay. All right, so Mayor Pro Tem, I'm noticing that we have a person listed as caller number 4 that we didn't get to introduce. And so I am unmuting your microphone now, user number 4. I believe Sandra, is that you? To introduce yourself, Sandra?
Yes.
You can introduce yourself, ma'am. We skipped you in the introduction portion.
All right. This is Sandra Stinson, president of the Boston Thurmond Community Engagement Roundtable.
Okay. Thank you for being with us today, ma'am. We are going to open now with Tiffany White. Tiffany joins us from the planning department, and she is the lead for the city's effort on getting the census info out into the community. And so Tiffany, if you would join us now, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is it possible for you to put my slides up?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Just one moment.
Well, I'll just introduce myself again. My name is Tiffany White. As Ed said, I work in the planning department with the city. I'm also the staff coordinator for the Forsyth County Complete Count Committee for the 2020 census. And I want to thank Mayor Pro Tem Adams and Zena for allowing me to speak to you all tonight about the census. Hopefully everybody knows about the decennial census. It's written in the Constitution, and it's a physical count of every person living in the United States. And so, again, it comes around every 10 years. The last one was in 2010, and now we're here doing it again. Next slide, please, Ed. So there are a lot of reasons why the census matters, but basically you can distill it down into these 4 reasons. First of all, political representation. With a complete and accurate census count, this year North Carolina could gain an additional congressional seat. So that would be an additional voice at the national level that would advocate for North Carolina. So that's really important for our community. Secondly, it's federal funding. Because of the census data, each year North Carolina receives more than $23 billion in funding for more than 55 statewide programs, including road construction, Medicaid, Head Start programs, job training, college grants, just to name a few. And that money is based on the census count from 2010, and we get that amount every year. So with an accurate count in 2020, that amount could increase every year for the next 10 years. And the agencies and programs that rely on this federal funding to help members of our community really need an accurate count in order to receive that funding to help our community. The third thing that the census does is that it creates a lot of statistics and demographics that anybody in the US can access. And most specifically, businesses, large and small, use these statistics to make decisions on where to locate and expand. So they look at our communities to see our population information and what people are interested in, and that's how they decide one of the reasons they decide to start businesses here. So that's very important too for our local economy. And finally, local services. Local agencies rely on census data for grant applications and funding opportunities in order to serve our community. And again, being able to have an accurate count allows these agencies to really serve our local population. Next slide, please, Ed. This year, one of the cool things that the census does is that it has an online response rate tracker. I've included the URL at the bottom there. Anybody can check this out. And you can see the pull-down menus on the right side allow you to select state, county, and even down to the census tracts. And it shows you how our community is responding to the census. And this is updated every weekday at 3 o'clock. So you can see it change in real time. And actually the site was down yesterday when I tried to pull the most recent data information. So this map is a couple weeks old, but you can go in and see real time how our community is doing in response. The orange tan colors are under 50% response rate, and the blue gray colors are an over 50% response rate to date. Next slide, please, Ed. So our Map Forsyth team took this information and created a very detailed map of all of the census tracts in the city that had lower than 50% response rate. So the big purple numbers that you see are the census tract identifier numbers. And I put a red line around Boston-Thurmond. So Boston-Thurmond is made up primarily of tracts 301 and 302, with just a little bit of track 4 and a little bit of track 12. And you can see that track 301 has a 51 to 56% response rate, and that 302 and 4 are under 50% as of now. Next slide, please, Ed. And this just zooms in a little closer so that you can, whoops, so that you can see the streets and kind of the census tract outlines. And final slide, Ed. So really why I was asked to speak today is to encourage everybody in the Boston-Thurmond neighborhood and really citywide to respond to the census. The Census Bureau has announced that the final date for self-response is September 30th. So you have until September 30th if you haven't already responded to do so. If you have responded, that's great, and I really appreciate it. And please encourage everyone you know to respond as well. The best way to respond is you should have received a mailer, perhaps more than one, in March and April that had a census identification number on it. If you have that, please use that census identification number because it really targets the information that they have and gives a quick response to those of us following the data as to who has responded. If you don't have that census identifier number, that's okay. You can just use your address. You can call this 1-800 number that I've listed and follow the prompts, or you can respond online by going to my2020census.gov. If you choose the call-in option, I will say that because of COVID, the Census Bureau has had to reduce the number of people that they have in their call centers because of social distancing. And so the wait times are a little bit longer than they might have been without the pandemic. So please be patient. We would really love to have you and your household members counted in the census. Because again, being counted helps our entire community and allows funding and services to get directly to the people that live in Boston-Thurmond. Thanks.
Thank you, Tiffany. We'll come back at the end of all of our presentations to give everyone an opportunity to ask any questions that may arise, but the census is important. You heard some of it from Tiffany there. There are some additional efforts that are going on around the city to try to get more information out. I know Zena has played a pretty neck-deep role in that. I would like to just give Zena a moment if she has anything to add to that.
I like to say that there is a great deal of canvassing going on in the community right now, especially the areas that Tiffany White has mentioned. Again, track 301 and 302. It's a very large area in the Boston-Thurmond community. If you are interested in canvassing with me and some others, it would be greatly, greatly appreciated. And that's just getting out, door knockers, and telling our residents that their count is extremely important and how important it is and where those funds go. You do have my number and email, so please feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to have you tagging along and hitting the pavement with me.
Thank you, Zena. Care of property is our next item, and for this, we're going to open things up to Community Development Department, and that's going to begin with Marla Newman. Marla, if you'll take it from here for us, please.
Sure. Thank you, Ed. And I will defer a good part of the discussion to the frontline staff that manages that. So as it relates to the care of property, particularly code enforcement, I will yield the floor to Bruce Bailiff.
We have continued to serve the community, and we have been impacted by the pandemic, just as we've discussed in several presentations here. The staff were at home for a 10 to 11 week period. I believe it was 11 weeks. And then when we came back, we were behind, and we concentrated our efforts, focused our efforts in and among our staff in sub-teams, if you will, and was able to get ourselves into a current position shortly, I would say about 3 weeks after returning to work. And then we've resumed our normal operations. The other thing that I would mention here too is we've been busy citing, excuse me, been busy citing for high weeds and grass and for trash. That was because it was a community impact. It drives straight at the livability of the community and the sanitation, if you will. And so we have worked hard to get these cases under our wing, so to speak. We're under code enforcement. At the same time, due to the pandemic, we have extended through direction, we have extended the compliance period. So you may not see the compliance quite as fast as you have in the past, but due to COVID-19 and the impact on all of the community, that has been delayed somewhat. And I say that from typically our environmental cases have about a 14-day turnaround. We're now allowing 30 days. And then, of course, if it's not brought into compliance, then we would, our crews have been busy as well. We are not currently entering into units, residential units, and we are attempting to work with residents, occupants, if you will, homeowner or otherwise, through either video inspections and re-inspections or through FaceTime. All of our staff have Apple products, and that allows us to FaceTime live, which provides for immediate feedback, not only from staff, but also feedback from whoever is helping us in terms of that inspection, usually the occupant. But again, we're striving to stay current. We're striving to serve the community as best we can. And we encourage folks, if you have any complaints or any concerns, to contact CityLink at 311 or 727-8000.
Okay. Is there anyone else from community development with an item to present today?
We have our senior project supervisor for lending on the call as well, who can just give folks a brief update on where we are with the various rehab programs that we currently utilize. And that's the tender.
All right, Deidre, you can proceed.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Adams and everyone present, and thank you all for having me. I'll just give a brief synopsis of what we do at the Lending Division and how we help the community. So as stated, my name is Deidre Pender, and I'm the Senior Project Supervisor of the Lending Division. In the Lending Division, we offer rehabilitation assistance to homeowners within the city limits whose homes are in distress. We are continuing our assistance efforts by utilizing safe work practices in the midst of the pandemic to ensure that the safety of the residents and staff continue as we engage in the community. We provide assistance in the forms of direct payment and forgivable loans based upon household income. Applicants do have to be deemed eligible, in which they will work with an assigned loan officer who will walk them through the application process from beginning to end. We offer programs such as rehab, turn, hazard reduction, physical accessibility, and emergency repair. Rehab is offered to all city residents who would like to place an application. Turn is a rehab program as well, but it is a loan program specifically designated for certain neighborhoods in the city limits. The Boston-Thurmond area is included in the Turn program. These programs are designed to provide repairs and improvements to meet the minimum housing code standards, as well as to improve the overall neighborhood's appearance. The program max for rehab and turn goes up to $65,000 if necessary. That does not mean every loan will reach that maximum, but that is the maximum amount of assistance that we can provide to the homeowner. Rehab and turn applications are designated for specific open application periods, which are advertised via the city's website, social media, and a mailing list. If you would like to be added to the mailing list, you would need to contact 311 for more information so they can get you in touch with staff so that we can place you on our mailing list once we open up those applications. We also offer emergency repair and physical accessibility assistance year-round outside of the specific designated application periods. We define an emergency repair condition as an issue in the home that might be an imminent threat to the health and safety of the occupants. Our physical accessibility program is designed to assist residents who face mobility difficulties within their home. These programs offer assistance amounts up to $15,000 if needed. Anyone can apply for our emergency repair and physical accessibility program. Again, those are offered year-round. If anyone would like additional information about our lending programs and our rehab programs, I'm available. You can contact me via phone or email.
Okay. Is there anything else from community development?
No, and thank you, Ed, for the opportunity to be here.
Okay. Again, I'll just remind our participants and attendees to stick around. There will be an opportunity to ask questions here as we come to the end of the program. But we want to turn our attention now to the organizations Boston-Thurmond United and Boston-Thurmond Community Network. And I believe what we'll do on that is we'll start with Regina Hall. So Regina, you are open and ready to go there.
Perfect. I would like to say thank you to Mayor Pro Tem Adams for the opportunity to join you all this evening. seeing lots of familiar faces, which is always good. And just also want to acknowledge Representative Montgomery, if he's still with us, and also Carol Brooks and Zena. So for those who may not know, Boston Thurmond United is the name of a purpose-built community. Purpose-Built Communities is based out of Atlanta, Georgia. It's a national community development association, and the Boston Thurmond neighborhood became affiliated with Purpose-Built back in May of 2019. Boston Thurmond United is one of 28 purpose-built communities throughout the country. It consists of the Boston Thurmond Community Network, which provides long-term sustainability and resources for the work. And then Boston Thurmond Community Engagement Roundtable, in which there are several people represented on the call tonight from the roundtable that we affectionately call the Community Engagement Network. And they serve as the resident leadership organization that develops just the vision for the neighborhood, as well as resident capacity building. And I know that we will hear from a few of them after I go, I'm sure. So I just wanted to share a few things that we have done recently in the community, including providing COVID care bags to members of the community. So April through May, we were in the community giving out toilet paper, paper towels, cleaning products, masks, and hand sanitizer. And we did that for several weeks, and hopefully we'll be able to do a part 2 of that. We did get a pretty decent response from the neighborhood. Also on July 31st, we helped to sponsor a Stop the Violence event. And it was an outreach event as well. We held it in Gateway Commons Park. And we had corporate sponsorship from Dario's and then also Sam's Club. Thankfully, we just finished brokering a deal with Spectrum and the Housing Authority, which is essentially replicating what was done with Cleveland Avenue Homes in Piedmont Park. So we were able to finish phase 1 of that, which includes us being able to provide hardwire internet to about 32 households between Plaza and Townview apartments. So we're really excited about that. And we hope to be able to do a phase 2 where we can provide additional internet services to other folks in the neighborhood. Also, something important to mention is the need to tune into the input sessions that will be taking place with Winston-Salem Forsyth County School System. I know that we do have some representation. I know Effie is on the call as well. I'm sure they may speak about that. But wanting to make sure that residents of Boston Thurmond are aware of the input sessions that are coming up on tomorrow at 12 noon, again at 6 p.m., and then Thursday at 7:30 a.m. To talk about the Brunson Elementary School reconstruction. I understand that there are 3 options. One, reconstructing the existing Brunson Elementary School site. The second option of constructing the new Brunson School on the current Cook site. And then the third option to construct a new school on the land located at 1201 North Patterson Avenue. Obviously, anything that has to do with education of our students and families in Boston Thurmond is important. And so we just want to make sure that our residents are aware and are involved in those conversations and being able to engage in discussions with members of the school system about the impact that will have on students and families in Boston Thurmond. Also, we will be having, I don't want to cross over maybe some of the things that others may say, but we do have an event coming up. If you all are aware of Love Out Loud having an event in September, they will be having their Walkout Winston event. They'll be doing it a little differently. They'll be taking more of a virtual approach to that. They weren't able to do all of their sites, but the Kimberly Park area in Boston Thurmond was one of the sites that they kept. And so hopefully if people are able to engage in that, that may be a great learning opportunity to learn about all the great assets, community assets in Boston Thurmond. And so keep your eyes and ears open for that to participate in that. Ed, that's all I have for now.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Should we move things over to Sandra Stinson now? I think Sandra was listed here as user number 4 on the call-in line. Sandra, can you hear us?
Ed, what about Chief Mayo?
So you want to move to fire now, ma'am?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's move to fire. Chief Mayo, I'm going to ready your presentation here. You are unmuted, sir, and we are going to be ready to go.
Thanks, Ed. Good evening again, Mayor Pro Tem Adams and Representative Montgomery and other panelists and guests. I just got a one-pager that Ed's working on pulling up there. I just wanted to remind everybody about the danger that cooking fires pose in your homes. We're answering about 280 or 90 house fires a year, and about half of those, 51%, start on the cooktop, and it's always, almost always, as a result of human error in the action of walking away from the stove. The telephone rings, the doorbell, baby cries. We have a lot of folks in the city who work third shift. They come home, they're tired. They put something on the stove to get warm up while they go to the bedroom and change clothes. They, sit down for a minute, fall asleep because they are working that third shift. It is so easy to happen, and I just want to encourage everybody to not leave cooking unattended. If you're standing there at your stove, please stay with it. Just a few stats here for what the fire department did in terms of call volume in the Boston Thurmond neighborhood. This is from July 1st, 2019 through June 30th of this year. So we answered about 2% of our citywide call volume in the Boston Thurmond neighborhood. For the most common fire types you see there is a house fire in the neighborhood. And Ed, if you can scroll up or make that a little larger, perhaps, our most frequent medical emergency is respiratory distress or breathing difficulty. I've got some phone numbers down the side there for you. It is likely that we will begin taking applications for new firefighters sometime in the next 6 months. And if you or someone has an interest in coming to work for the Winston-Salem Fire Department, we have a recruiting number there, the 7965-773-7965. Also, that same number, you can reach Miss Sabrina Stowe. She's our fire and life safety educator. She coordinates our smoke alarm program, which is temporarily suspended in observance of the COVID pandemic. But in typical years, we would install 800 to 1,200 smoke alarms in the city. I would ask, and Bruce Bailiff, if he's still on the call, he can speak more intelligently about this than I, but for those who are living in tenant-occupied housing, it is the landlord's responsibility to make sure that smoke alarms, CO alarms, and other devices required by code are in place. We go out and do it, but when we go out and put up smoke alarms, that is the landlord's responsibility, then that reduces the reach of our program. We don't have millions of smoke alarms to give away. We buy those every year. It's a budgeted item. And when we're putting those up for folks for those who, when it's a landlord's responsibility, it does reduce the reach of our program. So I would encourage, if you're in tenant-occupied housing and you don't have smoke alarms, CO alarms when they're required, if you can't get your landlord to move on that, then the most effective thing to do is to reach out to community code and allow them to address that deficiency. just two other things briefly. You've got a picture and a description there on the screen on this handout about stovetop fire stops, and stovetop fire stops are an active device. A smoke alarm is a passive device. It just says, "Hey, I smell smoke." It doesn't do anything about it. It's just a notification device. But a stovetop fire stop is essentially an overgrown tuna can that is filled with a high grade sodium bicarbonate baking soda and has an industrial grade firecracker with a fuse that sticks out. They are cheap. They make three models. One goes under an over the range vent hood, and then there are two models that go under a over the range microwave, and they're $45 to $80 delivered, for depending on which model you order. You can buy those from the manufacturer, and that information is on your screen. But people say, "Well, I don't want to spend that kind of money." Well, it's a 6-year. They have a 6-year shelf life, 6-year life expectancy. They require no maintenance, easy installation. They do not activate on smoke or heat, only on direct flame contact. And as I like to tell people in public settings like this, call your favorite insurance company, State Farm, Liberty, Nationwide, I don't care who it is, and see if they'll sell you that kind of protection over 6 years for $45 to $80. And I promise you'll be disappointed with their answer. The last thing I have for you is a lot of our house fires are in tenant-occupied housing, and please, for folks who are listening and for those who can help us get the message out, please encourage tenants to have renter's insurance. Renter's insurance is dirt cheap because it only replaces contents. It's not on the structure. But we go to a lot of fires where people literally lose everything. And I heard somebody say while ago during introductions that they had recently been displaced by a fire. But we go to a lot of fires about every 36 hours somewhere in the city, and we have a tenant who loses everything and is displaced, and they have not invested $100 or $150 a year in renter's insurance. So please help us get that message out. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Chief. Yes, thank you. Bruce, did you want to add to that
Yes,
discussion?
I'd just like to add briefly to anybody that's listening. The minimum housing code requires that you have an operable smoke detector in the common area outside of bedrooms, as well as an operable smoke detector in each bedroom. And if it's a multi-story residence or unit, then you need to have at least one on each floor. As Chief Mayo pointed out, this is a requirement under the minimum housing code. And so if you do not have an operable smoke detector as outlined, please contact CityLink at 311 or 727-8000. 311 or 727-8000. The other thing is that if you have a my apologies, my phone started ringing. If you have a fossil fuel such as gas or oil, then you're also required to have a CO2 detector. And the same thing goes. It needs to be operable, needs to be installed. One in the unit is sufficient. But if you have any questions at all, please contact CityLink, put in a request, and community development, code enforcement staff will be more than happy, and we want to come out or to talk with you about those life-saving items. They're relatively inexpensive in terms of just general cost, but they are really cheap when we start talking about life safety. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thanks so much, Bruce. For our attendees, we thank you for joining us. There is an option on your screen that will allow you to raise your hand if you have a question. And so we'll open the floor at this time to allow you to ask questions. I'll go back through briefly the presentations you've heard today. You saw about the COVID-19 efforts happening from Novant. We heard from Representative Montgomery, his report from Under the Dome. Captain Rick Noonan talked about the crime in the area recently. We heard from Tiffany White in planning about the importance of the census, the opportunity to make an impact there. We heard from what's going on in Boston Thurmond United, report from the fire department, and then we heard some interesting information from our housing and code enforcement. So if you are an attendee, there is an option for you to raise your hand electronically, and then we can unmute you and allow you to ask your question of any of the panelists that are in front of us here today. Are there any questions? If you will simply open that link, and that will allow you to raise your hand and we can give you the floor. Okay, I see Diana Fitzhugh that has a question. Diana, go ahead.
Yes, I thought there were members from the school board on the panel. We've not heard from them.
Yes, so I think there is a member here, but it seems to be she is in the middle of another meeting, and she is trying to kind of be in two places at one time. I'm going to open this link, and I believe
there's two of us available. I'm Effie McMillan and Deborah Harris are here for Dr. Harrison, since we did have a school board meeting tonight.
Very good. Okay. So did you have, Ms. Fitzhugh, did you have a question you wanted to present?
Yes, I wanted to ask actually a two-part question to the members of the school board. One was that what's the school board's plan for the rebuilding of Brunson? And when will the community, secondly, when will the community get an opportunity to have some input before the final plans are made?
So hi, this is Effie McMillan. We're actually just employees of the district. So our school board member, Malashay Woodbury, I know she was trying to do both, listen in and be a part of this conversation as well as attend to the board meeting. I don't know the specifics myself, nor Ms. Harris, who's on the call, know the specifics. However, Regina did give some information earlier, which is the same information that I have. I'm just looking at my other screen. The options that have been put forth about where the property may be constructed. There are 3 sessions that will be happening, 2 tomorrow, 1 at noon and 1 at 6 p.m. And then another session on Thursday morning at 7:30 a.m. in which a presentation has been prepared to share with the community. That's as much as I know right now. That broadcast will be on the district's Cable 2 channel. And so I'll just repeat those times: tomorrow at noon and at 6 p.m. and then Thursday morning at 7:30 a.m.
Are these virtual meetings that you're having?
I don't know, but I could find out and then share.
Please get the link to Zena.
Okay.
At least send that out to the residents.
Okay, will do. And Zena, if you don't mind, just maybe put your email address in the chat box or sending it to me. We'll be happy to share that information with you.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Are there any other attendees who have a question at this point? So it looks like Jean Perry. So Jean, go ahead with your question.
Yes, in reference to Portia Jones' presentation, I noticed that she talked about the decline in the people being tested in the 3 different areas that they serve. One question is, and they was concerned about the turnaround time, that they had to be quarantined. What are the turnaround times for other areas of Forsyth County? Or is it large in holidays?
Yeah, Yeah, so that's a very good question. The turnaround times are about 5 to 7 days, and that's across the state actually. That's kind of what we've been doing since we pretty much started. So we're looking at about 5 to 7 days.
Thank you, Portia. Anyone else with a question? I see Patricia Caldwell. You can begin with your question, ma'am.
Yes, this question is, I have two questions. Number one, I'm directing it to Bruce Bailiff. I live right across the street from the Cambridge Apartments, and there's a lot of activity in Cambridge Apartments, and I've just found out that Sam Algren with Home Real Estate is planning on putting a fence and has had surveyors out and was wanting some response back about this activity and what's going on with that, because my concerns are with the safety of fire police vehicles, because they had a one resident that was injured, and fire truck was basically unable to get down the street. So if they fence this part off, if it couldn't turn around in the street, I'm pretty sure it cannot turn around in the apartment complex the way it is designed.
I wasn't aware that they were installing a fence, but I'll contact the property owner for an update. Hopefully tomorrow I'll be able to make that contact, and I'll get back in touch with you. I believe I've got your contact information.
And my second question is directed to the police department. There's been an increase in juvenile activity in the Cambridge apartment, as well as gangs initiation, because just last week, these were adults with about 10 young children got out the car and had eggs, and I don't know if it was a part of an initiation or what. They got the eggs from that individual, and they were throwing the eggs at the apartment buildings. And I just fear for my mother's safety. My mother's 91 years old.
Captain Noonan, do you want to address that, or do you have anything you want to add in?
No, I mean, I think it goes back to, what we spoke about earlier. The juveniles are out. They are not in school. And unfortunately, I think there are some juveniles that are not being supervised the way they should be. I would love for that to change, obviously. The eggs at the apartment, obviously, this is the first I've heard of that, but, we can obviously look into that. But what day did that occur, Ms. Caldwell?
Just one moment. Let me get her back on there. There she is.
It was on Saturday that this activity took place. That they were, and these were all like grown men that were issuing out the eggs, and it's like a group of young boys that just congregate in apartment units on one particular. But the police used to sit up in the parking lot, but I noticed that they said that a lot of the policemen were at other areas downtown, but someone would have a police car up there and kind of monitor the activity. But like I said, over the last month, has really been no police presence. No police presence.
Okay, well, I appreciate you letting me know that, and we'll look into it and take care of it. I do know at one point there was some off-duty officers that were working the complex. I don't know if that's stopped. I don't think it has, but I'll look into that also. But I agree, Ms. Caldwell. Unfortunately, I think there are some nefarious individuals that are using juveniles as a means, and it's disappointing. It's not good. Whether it's gang activity or not, I can't say with 100% certainty. But at the very least, it's malicious injury to property. So I appreciate you letting me know, and we'll look into it. And I'll look into the aspect of more patrol up there in Cambridge Avenue apartments.
Okay. Thank you, Captain. I'll open things up now for Ashley Miller. Ashley, you had your hand raised. You can proceed with your question now.
My question is for Ms. Deidre Pender. She was talking about the emergency response, emergency repair, and you can receive at least up to $15,000. Is that money that is free money for repairs, if that is appropriate, or is that money that will have to be paid back? How does that work?
Yes, thank you for your question. The program is a federally funded program, and it is in fact a loan program. So it's not necessarily free money, but based upon the household income. The household income will determine if you would be required to make a monthly payment on the loan, or if it would be considered a forgivable loan that does not require a monthly payment. Does that help answer your question?
Yes. Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Okay, I know we're approaching 7:30. Mayor Pro Tem wants us to always try to be on time with this. I apologize that we got off to a slow start. We had some tech challenges there. I do still see some hands raised. I want to just offer the opportunity. I believe that we may, everyone whose hand is raised has asked a question, and it may just be that you didn't disengage that. So I'm going to start here. Diana, did you have another question? Ms. Fitzhugh?
No, I didn't. I'll lower my hand.
Okay, I think I see it now. There we are. Everyone's lowered their hands. All right, so with that, I will again say thank you all for joining us on the call. Again, my apologies for the challenges with it. I'll turn things back over to Mayor Pro Tem Adams.
Again, I want to thank everybody for being here. Representative Montgomery, the police, Winston-Salem PD, Winston-Salem Fire, Housing, Community Development, Inspections, Boston Thurmond Network, and United, all of the city staff, and Novant, Portia Jones. The environment that we're living in now, I said this back in March, that I personally, this is my opinion, I don't see us coming out or doing virtual meetings, people, for a pretty good while. I commend everyone for getting up to skill on being able to do this, that actually allows us to have results and be able to communicate. I would hope as we move forward that Boston Thurmond, that we will meet. Again, however regular you guys want to meet, just let Zena know and we'll make that happen, and I'll make it happen. I cannot stress enough how important it is to social distance, wear your mask, wash your hands, stay away from people if you can. This virus is not going anywhere either no time soon. And, people get comfortable, and I just don't want us to get comfortable. I know you didn't like being locked down back in March and April. I don't think you want to go back to that. But if with school going back and all these other entities, the colleges opening, restaurants opening, we do have the propensity to see these numbers go up in North Carolina. And I'm sure if it does, the mayor and the council and the governor, we will do what we have to do to protect the citizens as a whole. Representative Montgomery, did you have a question or comment?
I just want to make a comment. The Secretary, Mandy Coy, Secretary of Health and Human Services, asks all the members of legislature every time we have an audience to reinforce the 3 W's: wear your mask, wait 6 feet, and wash your hands. So I want to be able to tell her that I did that on call, because that goes directly to your point, Mayor Pro Tem, that we all have to do our part in order to make sure that we don't return to the place that you're in.
That's right. I also want everyone to know the importance of where we are so far as the social justice and the unrest and the racial unrest in our community and everything else. I can tell you that we're doing everything that we need to do or should be doing, and anything that we need to do more, we will. I want to commend Winston-Salem PD and all of the folks that have been participating in the protests and the marches, because that's your right. And we will continue to support that right. Now, anytime that you want to get out in the street and cause safety and harm to others, then we have to do what we do. And it's unfortunate that people think that we are overstepping our boundaries. But again, as the protector of the people, that's what we have to do. That's what we signed up for. A couple other things. I want you all to know that we have an election coming up. And I'm not supposed to talk about it. I'm not talking about it for me. I'm talking about it for all of us in general. That is part of your responsibility, just like COVID, is to participate in the process. The census. The census to me, is just as important as the election process. All the programs and things that everybody wants, as Representative Montgomery said, the shiny things that we used to could do. Well, yeah, that might not happen for a while either, because no revenue coming in, no tax dollars coming in, no water bill money, no nothing. Then our budgets and general funds, our funds have been drawn down, where all we're trying to do is hold the house together, like we did with the Great Recession almost 10 years ago. That census count for all the cities now, because they moved the cutoff from October 31st, they moved us to September the 30th. And we're almost a month to the ending of the census, that our numbers will dictate the funding we get for housing, the funding we get for streets and sidewalks and to pay public safety, the funding to better improve the way our community looks, businesses, startup, healthcare, everything under the sun that we all, food stamps, Medicaid, all of it, teachers, education, pay, everything comes because of the census. Right now, Winston-Salem or Forsyth County is clocking at 62%. The state is clocking at 59, I think, Representative Montgomery. That's not good, people. All these other cities that recognize that all the strife we're feeling from COVID, they have now a get out of jail card to get their numbers up and get some money. I need all of you in every neighborhood, every borough, everything. We got to make sure folks are getting counted. And so Gina and Tiffany will be having a meeting Friday with the government subcommittee, where I get to talk to the county commissioners and everybody else and tell them, school board, y'all got to step up. That we got to get out and get our folks counted. But again, I don't want to be the gloom and doom, but I got to tell you the truth, because that's just the way it is right now. But I want to thank each and every one of you again for being engaged and being a part of this meeting. And I pray for everybody's safety, known and unknown, that we get through this eventually. But I do know our world as we know it will not be like it was before March for a while. Thank you, Ed, Marketing Communication. Thank you, Zena. Thank you, staff, and all the participants. I hope everybody has a safe evening, okay?
Thank you.